Hello, everybody. I want to share a Christmas story with you, and I hope you'll enjoy the message that's involved in the story. It is a story within a story. So the title of the story is called A Boy Named Sammy. I want to share a story with you tonight about a boy named Sammy. Sammy was a 15-year-old with special needs. He knew he was different than the other kids, but Sammy didn't worry too much about that. He went to school with the other kids, even though he was 2 years behind. He did all the things that most boys do. He played ball, rode his bike, went fishing, climbed trees. And for the most part, the kids weren't too mean. Sometimes they laughed and called him Stupid Sammy. But Sammy just didn't seem to hear it. He enjoyed his small slice of life, every part of it. To Sammy, life was full of wonder and amazement. And Christmas was the most wonderful time of all. Sammy was mesmerized by the lights and the decorations and all the smiles that people gave him. It was Christmas Eve, and both the sky and the ground were white with snow. It was 6 o'clock, time to go to the church for the annual Christmas Eve service. Sammy could hardly wait. He was so excited, wondering what present would be under the tree for him this year. Last year, he got a telescope. You see, every year at Christmas time, in the Christmas Eve service, at the end of the service, all the children would gather around the huge Christmas tree in the sanctuary, and each was handed a present. And even though Sammy was a little older than the other children, they still let him take part. Sammy's parents left early for church that night because his mother was singing a solo in the service, and she wanted time to prepare. So they were the first ones to arrive at church. And when his dad opened the car door, well, you could guess where Sammy went. At the speed of light, Sammy ran straight to the Christmas tree, and he started to look for the present with his name on it. After a few minutes, he began to worry because he couldn't find it. Then his eyes caught sight of a big box, the biggest present that there was. He slowly walked over to it, lifted the card, and there, in great big letters, was his name, Sammy. He couldn't believe it. The biggest present was his. And in his mind, he began thinking of all the possible presents that might be inside. Maybe it was a bike, or a TV, or a horse. What was in it? Sammy could barely stand it, but he knew he had to wait. Sammy really did enjoy the service, really. But he could hardly sit still through it all. It seemed like hours. Finally, the moment had arrived, and all the children rushed to the huge tree. Pastor Joe started picking up presents and calling out names. Sarah, Bobby, Susan. Sammy was on the edge of his seat. He was about to burst with anticipation. Then Pastor Joe walked over to a big box, and he said, "Well, let's see whose name is on this one." But before he could read the name, Sammy bolted beside him. He said, "It's mine, Pastor Joe." "So it is," the pastor replied. Sammy took the box. He gently took off the bow. His heart was racing like a jackhammer. His mom and dad stood beside him smiling, enjoying their son's excitement. Sammy removed all the paper. He laid it beside the box. And slowly, he removed the lid. In his mind, all the things he hoped to see flashed before his eyes. Finally, Sammy got the box open, and he looked inside, and he saw nothing. He saw nothing. Someone had played a trick on Stupid Sammy. When Sammy lifted his head, huge tears were streaming down his cheeks. Who would do something so cruel? Who would play such a mean trick on Sammy? The box was empty. And we understand. Every day, all around the world, that same trick is being played. Though the names and the exact situations are a little different, the results are still the same. Our world promises people great things: happiness, wealth, pleasure, relationship, success. And it wraps them all up in a great big box with a pretty paper and a beautiful bow. But as we excitedly unwrap the gift and look inside, just like Sammy, all we find is an empty box. No hope, no joy, no peace, no love, no life. With heartache and disappointment, large tears begin to stream down our cheeks. That's the kind of gift that our world gives us. You've gotten them, and so have I. It promises what it cannot give. And like Sammy, we learn that life isn't always fair. And even now, right here where you're sitting, you're mad at me for telling you this story. Change the ending, we cry out from deep inside. Let there be a bike hiding behind the piano, we suggest. It's not fair, we demand. Just don't leave us empty again. We need a happy ending this Christmas. And there is a happy ending. You see, Pastor Joe saw the mean trick that was played on Sammy. Pastor Joe put his arm around Sammy's shoulder, and he led him to the Advent wreath that was burning brightly. He said very gently, "Sammy, I know that you're disappointed, but there is a present for you tonight. It is the greatest present of all. In fact, it's so big that it won't fit under the tree. Instead, we put it at the center of our Advent wreath. The real gift of Christmas came from God himself. The Bible says that God loved the world so much that he gave his son Jesus for us. And baby Jesus came to us in a manger, and he grew up. He told us of God's love. He told us how to get to heaven. Then he died for us, taking our penalty for all the bad things that we have done. When we ask God to forgive us, he does, and all of heaven becomes ours. Pastor Joe prayed with Sammy that night, and Sammy asked Jesus to live in his heart. Sammy felt a warmth inside of his heart, and he knew that it was Jesus. Sammy looked at the Christ candle, still with tears, but these tears were different. On the way home, Sammy told his parents that this was the best Christmas ever. May the true gift of Christmas be yours this Christmas night. Amen. Thank you for letting me share the story with you, folks. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.